In a world where suffering and loss often intertwine with moments of light and hope, a moving story unfolded, highlighting the strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Lucia and Matthias, a young couple full of dreams, faced the harsh reality of losing their little daughter, Sophia, at just 6 months old. Their grief was palpable, a pain that seemed to consume everything around them. During Sophia's wake, an unexpected event broke the melancholy that dominated the atmosphere. A crow entered the church and perched on the girl's coffin. What it did next left everyone present questioning what had really happened. In a small town nestled between gentle hills and flowered fields, the lives of Lucia and Matthias were about to change forever. They were a young couple whose love had been blessed with the arrival of a small light, their daughter Sophia. The joy of her presence was the sun that illuminated the cloudy days of the town, a miracle they could hardly believe was real. However, beneath the surface of this happiness, a storm was brewing, bringing with it winds of challenge and trial. The story begins on a fresh spring morning when Lucia wakes up to Sophia's soft crying. She rises promptly, her bare feet touching the cold floor of the modestly decorated room. Approaching the crib, she smiles upon seeing Sophia waving her little hands in the air, as if trying to grab the rays of sun that infiltrated through the window. "Mommy is here, my little light," Lucia whispers, cradling Sophia in her arms. Matthias, drawn by the sound of Lucia's voice, appears at the door, still wearing his faded pajamas. He watches the scene with a tender smile, feeling a wave of gratitude and unconditional love. "She is our hope, isn't she, Lucia?" Matthias says, approaching to kiss his daughter's forehead. "Everything will be all right." Lucia nods, although in her heart, a seed of concern had begun to germinate. Sophia, despite her contagious joy, had shown signs of fragile health since birth. Glimpses of fear and uncertainty began to cloud the couple's happiness, but they clung to hope, refusing to let darkness invade their home. In the days that followed, Lucia and Matthias sought medical help, seeking answers to Sophia's health issues. They visited several specialists, each with a different opinion, but none able to offer a definitive solution. Visits to the hospital became routine, with each return home bringing more questions than answers. On a particularly difficult afternoon, after a long day of tests and consultations, the couple sat in the small garden behind their house. They held hands, seeking comfort in each other in the face of the uncertainty they faced. "Sometimes I wonder why us," Lucia confesses, looking up at the sky beginning to tinge with the hues of sunset. "Because we are strong enough to face this, Lucia. Because our Sophia is a warrior, just like us," replies Matthias with determination in his voice. "No matter what happens, we'll be in this together." That night, as Sophia slept peacefully in her crib, Lucia and Matthias made a promise to each other. Regardless of the challenges that came their way, they would fight with all their might to protect their little light. They did not know it, but the greatest test of their strength was about to arrive in a form they could never have imagined. The town of Esperanza was about to witness an event that would speak directly to the heart of everyone who participated in it. An event that would begin with the unexpected presence of a crow in a moment of deep mourning and sadness. As the days went by, Sophia's health continued to decline. Despite Lucia and Matthias's tireless efforts, they spent sleepless nights watching over their daughter's crib, praying for a miracle that could dispel the shadow looming over their family. It was during one of these long nights that Sophia's condition significantly worsened, leading them to a desperate race to the hospital. The hours dragged on, each second an eternity, until they received the most devastating news. Sophia had little time left to live. On the day of the funeral, the community of Esperanza gathered in the church, an ancient building with colored stained glass windows that filtered sunlight into complex patterns on the floor. Friends, family, and even those who barely knew Lucia and Matthias came to offer their condolences. The atmosphere was one of profound sadness, a mantle of mourning that covered all present. Lucia and Matthias, united in grief, could barely stand before the small white coffin. The words of comfort offered by visitors sounded distant, unable to penetrate the fog of pain that enveloped them. Then, something unexpected happened, an event that would break the monotony of mourning in a way no one could have predicted. A crow, large and with brilliantly black plumage, entered through the open window of the church, interrupting the silence with the flap of its wings. The bird flew low over the pews before gently landing on Sophia's coffin. A murmur of surprise spread through the congregation. All eyes turned towards the bird. Crows were often seen as omens, and their presence there, at that moment of deep sorrow, was disturbing to many. "There's something evil in this," someone whispered in the crowd. A crow at a funeral can't be a good sign. But before anyone could react or shoo the bird away, the crow tilted its head, looking directly at Lucia and Matthias. What happened next left everyone speechless. The crow began to emit sounds that incredibly resembled words. "Do not weep," said the crow, its voice deep and surprisingly clear. "She is at peace." The silence that followed was absolute. No one in the church dared to breathe. Lucia and Matthias, with tears in their eyes, looked at the crow, a mixture of shock and fascination stamped on their faces. "How is this possible?" Matthias murmured, more to himself than to anyone in particular. Lucia, for her part, felt a wave of warmth wash over her body, despite the cold that surrounded her. The message from the crow, as impossible as it seemed, brought a ray of light to her tormented heart. The priest, recovering from the initial shock, approached the coffin cautiously. "Perhaps," he began, his voice trembling, "this crow is a messenger, a way to remind us that even in death there is hope and renewal." No one in the church knew for sure what to do or say in the face of such a phenomenon. But for Lucia and Matthias, the words of the crow served as an unexpected consolation, a sign that their daughter was, indeed, in a better place. The crow, having delivered its message, flapped its wings and flew out of the church, leaving behind a room full of people in a state of collective astonishment, but also a tacit understanding that they had just witnessed something truly extraordinary. After the crow's departure, a reverent silence settled over the congregation in the church. The priest resumed the ceremony with a new sense of purpose, speaking about the fragility of life, the importance of community, and the hope that transcends human understanding. Lucia and Matthias, though still immersed in their grief, felt a subtle shift in their hearts. The words of the crow, as inexplicable as they were, had planted a seed of peace amidst the storm of their sadness. In the days following the funeral, the story of the crow that spoke during Sophia's funeral became the main topic of conversation in the town of Esperanza. Some saw it as a divine sign, others as a mystery of nature, but all agreed there was something magical about that event. Lucia and Matthias, for their part, began to seek a deeper meaning in the message of the crow, pondering the ways they could honor Sophia's memory and find a path to move forward. They decided to visit Sophia's grave daily, bringing flowers and talking to her as if she could hear them. On one of these visits, while sharing their hopes and fears before the small grave, an elderly woman approached. She introduced herself as Doña Clara, a longtime resident of the town who had heard about the story of the crow. "I believe animals have a special connection to the spiritual world," Doña Clara said, her voice laden with a calm wisdom. "The crow that visited your daughter's funeral was a messenger, a reminder that, though Sophia has left this world, the love you shared will remain forever." Encouraged by Doña Clara's words, Lucia and Matthias began to open up to the possibility that life continues in ways we cannot see or fully understand. Inspired, they decided to create a garden in memory of Sophia, a place of beauty and serenity where the community could gather, reflect, and find comfort.